Hello, all you scaredy cats and kittens, and welcome to the Two Scaredy Cats Podcast, where we talk about all things strange, unusual, and paranormal. We're your hostess with the mostest. I'm Stacy, and unfortunately, Kara's not here with us this week. She is doing a convention, and she will be back hopefully next time we record. So anyway, it's just me. So this week, I came across a interesting legend or story from the great state of Kentucky, where I grew up. And it's about a cemetery with a haunted grave. And there's another entity there, apparently, that also haunts the cemetery. So let's go ahead and get started with our story today. Today's story is called The Little Witch of Kentucky. So, as we all know, cemeteries are known or thought to be haunted, but most are just resting places for our ancestors and loved ones. But in a small Kentucky town of Marion, Kentucky, there is a cemetery there called Pilot's Knob Cemetery. The graveyard isn't very big, but it contains a number of interesting burial markers, including one of particular interest to those interested in the paranormal. Now, local legend tells us of a child witch who currently lies in repose, or maybe not, in the Pilot's Knob Cemetery. So our story begins in the early 1900s. There was a woman and her 5-year-old daughter lived in the town of Marion at the time, and they were thought to be witches by the townspeople. Now, the family's last name was Ford, and the daughter was only 5, and her name was Mary Evelyn Ford. Now, these two grabbed the attention of the town, and like I said, they were thought to be witches. So instead of having them go to trial like most people did back then, I suppose, the town took it upon themselves to take care of doling out their punishment. And so what happened was the town took matters into their own hands. And there was never an official trial that was ever supposedly had for these two. And the town carried out their own sentence. And what they ended up doing was they ended up setting both the mother and daughter on fire and ended up burning them at the stake because they didn't want them to come back and curse them. Now, apparently, the little girl, Mary Evelyn, was buried in the town cemetery, but the location of the mom's remains are up in the air. They did not want to bury the mother with the daughter. They made sure to bury the mother someplace else in a different location and in an unmarked grave. And nobody knows where she's buried at to this day. Or at least that's how the story goes. So our story continues in that same little town of Marion, Kentucky, and the people kind of felt a little bit of remorse, I guess you would say, for what they had done and decided that they were going to bury the child in the cemetery. But they weren't going to just bury her the normal way that you bury somebody. They were very concerned that little Mary might return to seek revenge and cast spells and curses on them. So out of an abundance of caution and to keep her at rest, they decided that they were going to bury her in a steel-lined coffin. And then that coffin was covered in concrete, and then they threw rocks on top of it. So, and there's also a short white picket fence that surrounds the grave, and this picket fence has crosses that connect from one end to the other all the way around her gravesite. Which, if you think about it, is very strange and odd. Like, why would we go through all this trouble to bury somebody in a grave like this? And I have pictures which will be up on, I will be posting on our Instagram account, but you'll be able to check out pictures of what this little girl's grave looks like. It's kind of crazy. So the legend also describes that there is an evil presence there named the Watcher. And this entity is said to linger outside of the child's grave, and people believe that he is trying to get to the girl. Like he wants to steal the little girl's soul. So some people speculate that this watcher is a demon. And then others claim that it was somebody that died on a swinging bridge nearby or hung himself from a swinging bridge nearby, and that he just, haunts that particular cemetery, and he's very drawn to her grave for whatever reason. The crosses that are across the girl's grave form a barrier that this entity cannot cross. And some people, like I said, believe that the watcher is after the soul of the child. Mary Evelyn is also believed to walk back and forth inside of her white picket fence prison, trying to lure visitors close to drain people of their energy to increase her powers. Now, I have some stories here of some of the paranormal activity that people have witnessed or that have happened or have seen happen around her gravesite and in that particular cemetery. One of the students talks about a college student by the name of Jack Wheat, who went to the cemetery one day with a group of college buddies, and they noticed there were tiny footprints directly on the grave inside the fence. Now, they said that these footprints looked to be about the size of a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old child's feet. They also believed that they were chased by the watcher. I have another story here from the member of the Louisville Ghost Hunters Society, along with his roommate, decided that they were going to check out the old legend of the Little Witch by going to Marion and to the cemetery in person. So they said that the trip was strange from the very get-go, that they said they had very strange interactions with the residents of the town of Marion, who seemed very tight-lipped about the cemetery and what goes on there. When they were in town, they had stopped at a gas station and they were asking for directions to make sure that they were on the right path to where they were going. And they mentioned that when they talked to people, they were all very much like, you don't want to go up there. We don't go there. People don't go there. It's not a good place to go, and bad things happen there. So they went there at first during the daylight, and when they were up there, they noticed that on the gravesite of the little girl, there were footprints again that appeared there, and it looked like they were little kids' footprints. So they walked around a little bit, and then they decided they were going to go get some dinner, and they had to go to the bathroom, so they went back into town. So they decided to go back later that night and visit the place after dark. Now, they had heard when they got back, they heard an unexplained cackling sound in the forest, and they heard disembodied voices. They also felt like they were being watched the whole time that they were there at night, and they quickly got out of there because they heard footsteps that they were the only two in the area, and they kept hearing these footsteps like somebody was coming after them. Visitors to the site have said to have seen the apparition of a little blonde-haired girl wearing a singed nightgown. It's said that she will reach out to those who get close to her grave, trying to pull them in with her. She's also been seen making faces at people through the iron bars. Now, recently, I want to say within the past 5 years, within the past 5 years, there was a medium who went to the cemetery to check out little Mary's grave. And she said that she had contact with Mary, and all Mary really wants is to find her mother. Like, that's the whole reason why you can see Mary's little footprints on her gravesite, is because she's pacing back and forth, trying to see if her mom's coming for her, because she's apparently looking for her mom. But the medium said that that's, she just wants to be reunited with her mother. And as I stated early in the story, that she's not sure where exactly, nobody's sure exactly where the mother has been buried. Now, it's interesting to note that there have been a lot of people that have gone to the cemetery, trying to see what's going on there and that. And a lot of people have had experiences with the Watcher, this dark entity, or some people think it might be a demon, that supposedly lurks around the little girl's grave in the cemetery. And a lot of people have said that they've heard scratching noises out in the woods in that area. They have felt like they're constantly being watched. Some people felt like they were chased out of there by this watcher thing. So, yeah, it's really interesting how, these stories have gone on. Now, there's also some people that speculate that this really never happened and that it was all made up by somebody in the town as a way to keep kids from going up to the cemetery and messing around in there. And they claim that, the story is not true, that Mary actually died from stomach issues. Because back then, we didn't have all the science and medicine that we have today. And they say that Mary died from stomach issues. But even if that's true, it still raises the question of why did they bury her in a steel coffin? And why do they have all the concrete around her grave and the rocks on top of it? And why was there like a fence? If you look at pictures of the cemetery, her grave site is the only one that has a fence around it, and the only one that's like buried with concrete all around it. In that, I mean, when you go to any graveyard, nobody's ever has their grave caved in concrete and rocks and stuff. It's really crazy. As you all know, with small towns, people get these crazy ideas and stories in their head, or somebody could be mad at them for whatever reason. Neighbors get mad at one another and they start up stories. And we've seen this time and time again in some of the stories that we've talked about before about, women being accused of witchcraft and stuff like that because one of the nosy neighbors is mad at them because they think they're stealing their husband, or, they feel like they're up to no good. And then people get, the town people ride them out of the town, with pitchforks and that, or they ended up doing terrible things like what they say happened in this story. But again, we don't know if it's true or not. That's just what people say. But the cemetery is very creepy, they say, at night. And if you go there to be very careful, because there is, a presence there, an entity, and there are other ones there too. It's interesting to note that this particular area where this the cemetery sits right in the middle of where the Civil War was. And people say that apparently this town is known. It had like a lot of bootleggers that lived there and a lot of nefarious people that were up to no good, because a lot of people would come down from Ohio into Kentucky as a way to cross over, because it's right near Illinois where this area is. It's like on the west side of Kentucky. And people was like the gateway to getting out west so they could, find more land and find gold and, the promise of, your dream or whatever. So people would, come that way to go out west to, get to their dreams and stuff. So, so that's the story I have today. Like I said, it's about a little girl that was accused of, her and her mom were accused of being a witch. And then the town took it upon themselves to to kill them, because they felt like if they let them live, bad things were going to happen. Their crops were going to die and all that. Now, like I said, to this day, the little girl's grave it's encased in concrete. There's gravel on top of it. It's very weird. They do have a headstone on her grave. If you're ever out in close, like heading towards Paducah, or even going down to Nashville, you might pass by this area. It's in Marion, Kentucky. And the name of the cemetery is called Pilot Knob Cemetery. And if you look it up online, you can find out about it and stuff. So if you need to know where it is. I highly don't recommend going there at night. Like I said, lots of strange things happen at night. And a lot of people have been chased out. It's in a very secluded place. And remember, you are going into a small town and, people have guns there. So just be really careful. Well, that's all I have for us this week. Hopefully you enjoyed my story about the little witch girl of Kentucky. we'll be back in 2 weeks with another exciting episode of the Two Scaredy Cats Podcast. Remember, you can find us on Instagram, and we can also be found now on YouTube. And be sure to like and follow us on Instagram. I mean, I try to post on there when I can. Sometimes it's a little hard, but anyway, I hope everybody has a great couple of weeks, and Kara will hopefully be back with me then. So remember, curiosity didn't kill these two scaredy cats.